So with multiplying rational numbers, we are going to talk about both fractions and decimals again. Okay, so we'll see both, but now we just have to remember our rules for multiplying. Sorry, I didn't mean to get my hand in front of the screen though, but remember, two negatives when we're multiplying make a positive, and one negative stays negative. So don't forget those types of things, those rules for multiplying integers that are shown on this first screen here. So if they're the same signs, then we have a positive answer. If they're different signs, we have negative. Okay? So when we multiply fractions, okay, what gets confusing for some of us, and this might confuse you anyway, but when we multiply fractions, we're really just taking part of something, okay? That's what it means. So when I look at this first example here, 1/2 times 1/3, that means I'm actually taking half of a third. Okay, when you take half of something, your answer is actually getting smaller. So when we multiply fractions, a lot of times we're going to see that our answer actually gets smaller. And I can show that by saying if I have thirds, and I take this, let's say it's a candy bar, and I split it into thirds, okay, this would be 1/3. And now if I'm going to take half of the third, I'm going to cut that in half. I'm only looking at this right here that's colored in both green and purple. So my answer ends up being 1/6 because that's 1 out of the 6 pieces. Okay, and I think maybe we all remember that when we multiply fractions, we really just multiply the top numbers, multiply the bottom numbers, and get our answer. Okay, so when I look at the second one here, 2/5 times 2/3, I'm going to multiply the top numbers. 2 times 2 is 4. And multiply the bottom numbers. 5 times 3 is 15. And so my answer would be 4/15. Okay, now if I wanted to show that, I'm looking at 2/5 of 2/3. So I would take my candy bar, I split it into thirds. So here's my 2/3. And then I need to do 2/5 of that. So there I split it into fifths and I need 2/5. So it's those top two. What I'm looking at then is just this right here. And that is 4 out of the 15 pieces, which is right here. Multiply the top numbers, multiply the bottom numbers. Okay? And it really is that easy. Multiplying fractions is that easy. Multiply the top, multiply the bottom. Okay? So, when we look at fractions like this, where we have an integer, like -8 times 6/7, the first thing you always have to do is make sure you write any whole numbers as a fraction. Okay? So I'm going to take this -8 and I'm going to write it as -8/1. So now it's a fraction. And then I'm going to go times 6/7. Okay, this cross simplify thing, we'll get to that in a little bit. I'm not going to talk about that right now. So we're just going to multiply straight across. 8 times 6 is 48. 1 times 7 is 7. And so my answer is 48/7. But remember, in the original problem, I had one negative sign. So my answer has to be negative. Now, you guys, I'm 100% okay with you leaving your answer as an improper fraction. You can leave it that way as long as it's in simplest form. Okay? I can't divide 48 and 7 by anything, so I can just leave it as -48/7. I could change it. 7 goes into 48 6 times. 6 times 7 is 42, so there'd be 6 left over. So if I wanted to, I could write it as -6 and 6/7. But you don't have to. You can leave it as -48/7. Okay. On the second one, Okay, I have to write both of my numbers as fractions, but they can't be mixed numbers. So when I have 2, I'm going to write 2 as 2 over 1. And then I'm going to take 5 1/3 and I have to write it as an improper fraction. Do you guys remember how to write 5 1/3 as an improper fraction? Can anybody explain to me how I'd write 5 1/3 as an improper fraction? Anybody remember? Go ahead, Carson. Unmute yourself.
You need to multiply 5 and 3 and then add the 1.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carson. So you'd multiply the 5 and the 3, which is 15, and then add the 1. So that's going to be 16 over 3. Okay, once you do that part, then you can just multiply. 2 times 16 is 32 over 3. And since everything was positive, I leave my answer as 32 over 3. If you wanted to, you can change it to a mixed number. 3 goes into 32 10 times. 10 times 3 is 30 with 2 left over. So you could have either 32 over 3 or 10 2/3. Okay, so I want you guys to try this one. And you should be able to click start and try that problem. So remember, write the 6 as a fraction first and make it 6 over 1, and then multiply. And we'll go over it in a second. So if you think you're stuck, so Kaden, be careful on this one. These are not mixed numbers. The 6 in front of the parentheses just means you're multiplying 6 times 3/7. So the way it's written sometimes, some of you I see you're wanting to change it to an improper fraction. It's not a mixed number. It means 6 times 3/7. Okay, so I'm going to have everybody split their screen. Lots of you did this correctly. The correct answer, if you're splitting your screen and looking at the answer, is 18 over 7. Okay, and you can leave your answer like that. So sometimes it gets tricky because they use parentheses. If this was a mixed number, you guys, it would have been written like this, 6 3/7 without parentheses. Or the parentheses might have been around the whole thing. When you see a number like this, where the 6 is right in front of the parentheses, that means you're multiplying. And so you're going to put 6 over 1 times 3 over 7, and then just multiply, which is 18 over 7. You can change that to an improper fraction if you wanted. 7 goes into 18 2 times. 7 times 2 is 14, and there would be 4 left over. So when you get to your homework, I would accept either one of those answers, either 18 over 7 or 2 4/7. Okay? All right, so I want you guys to try one more. Try this one. Remember to make them improper fractions first. And if you need your calculator to help you with some multiplying, that is 100% okay. Okay, so I'm seeing lots of correct answers here. I'm going to have you split your screen so that you can see how I do the problem too. You should have had negative 95 over 11 or negative 8 and 7/11. Okay, and how you would get that, the negative 5 becomes negative 5 over 1, and then times 1 and 8/11. 11 times 1 is 11, plus the 8 is 19 over 11. Okay, then you just multiply straight across. 5 times 19 is 95. 1 times 11 is 11, and there's one negative sign, so your answer is negative. And you guys can leave your answer as an improper fraction. It's okay to leave your answer like that. Any questions so far? We have just a couple more problems to do. It's hard for me to tell, but are we doing okay? Yes, no, thumbs up. How are you doing with this? It's really hard when you guys aren't here. So let me know, okay? If you're stuck or confused, you guys gotta let me know. Okay, the next one. I'm gonna go over these two problems with you. So multiplying fractions, this time we're gonna talk about cross simplifying so that we don't always have to wait until the very end to simplify, okay? So when I look at this first one, I don't have to do any rewriting mixed numbers as improper fractions. I have 1/8 times 6 over 7. Okay, we don't have any mixed numbers, so we're good. Now right here where I say cross simplify, you guys, I would suggest doing this all the time, and that's simplifying on the diagonals. If there's anything diagonally that we can simplify, we should. It's going to make our multiplying at the end easier. Okay, now I look at the 1 and the 7, and I can't divide those by anything. But the other direction, the 6 and the 8, I know that I can divide both 6 and 8 by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So I can do that simplifying ahead of time. And now I multiply. 1 times 3 is 3. 4 times 7 is 28. And there's my answer. Okay, now some of you might say, I know I'm gonna forget to do that. That's okay. If you had 1 over 8 times 6 over 7 and you forgot to simplify, you would have 6 over 56. Hopefully at that point you recognize, well, I can divide both 6 and 56 by 2, and you end up with 3 over 28. So either way, you end up with the same answer. I like to simplify at the beginning because it gives me smaller numbers. Okay, so looking at the second one, negative 2/3, negative 2 over 3, times, I'm going to change 4 1/2 to an improper fraction. So 2 times 4 is 8 plus 1 is 9/2. Okay? Now, if you recognize that you can simplify here, it's going to make your problem a lot easier. Okay? So I can simplify the 2 and the 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. I can also simplify the 9 and the 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. So that made my numbers really easy to multiply. 1 times 3 is 3, and 1 times 1 is 1. What else do I need on this problem? This is what many of you are going to forget about. I need to have a what? Unmute yourself and shout it out if you know. Good. Somebody typed it in. You need to have a negative sign. Okay, remember you have one negative sign in the problem, so you need a negative sign in your answer. So your answer would be -3/1 or just -3. Okay, so I'm going to have you guys try a problem like this. So go ahead and hit start and try that problem. Oh, Abby, go ahead and just click OK. It should work. And don't forget to simplify. So if you're getting an answer of 24/45, remember you can simplify that. Those numbers can both be divided by 3. Okay, so I'm going to have you split your screen or make sure you can see the Zoom call and my work so you can compare your answer. When I look at this one, I know right away my answer is going to be positive for a final answer because a negative times a negative is positive, right? 2 negatives make a positive. And so then I see I have 8/9 times 3/5. Now, some of you just multiplied and you had 24/45. That's okay as long as you remember to simplify. You can divide both of these by 3 and you get 8/15. Now, for me, it's easier to simplify ahead of time. I would have saw this 9 and 3 and recognized that 3 divided by 3 is 1 and 9 divided by 3 is 3. And then when you multiply, you get 8/15 right away. So either way, as long as you make sure that you have it in simplest form. Okay, questions there from anyone? Okay, I want you to try one more. This is the last one you'll have to do. So make sure you change 3 1/5 to an improper fraction first. Nice job, you guys. Lots of correct answers here. Okay, so I'm going to have you split your screen so we can run through this one and then we're almost done. On this one, lots of you did this correctly. 3 1/5. 5 times 3 is 15 plus 1. So you have 16 over 5. Remember, you have to make them improper fractions first. And then we're going to times by 2 over 3. And this one was kind of nice because you can't simplify anything. So you multiply straight across. 16 times 2 is 32. 5 times 3 is 15. You can leave your answer as 32 over 15. If you want to, you can make it a mixed number. 15 goes into 32 2 times with 2 left over. So you could have 2 and 2/15 if you wanted. Questions there? Okay, this is the last slide. Multiplying decimals. You guys, we're going to make use of our calculator here. If we're going to multiply decimals, I am not going to make you multiply longhand. Okay? I'm going to look at that first one and I'm going to grab my calculator and don't worry about the negative sign. I'm just going to type in 2 times 0.51 and I get 1.02. Now, I do have to remember that if there's only one negative sign, that you make your answer negative. So the answer is negative 1.02. Done. We're going to use our calculator for that. Okay. On the second one, I recognize that I have 2 negative signs, and 2 negatives make a positive. So 0.4 times 3.75, and I end up with an answer of 1.5. And remember, it's positive, so I'm done. Okay, questions at all on that? All right, so I'm going to leave Hello Smart. Then you are going to go back to your modules on Canvas. And you just, if you haven't finished the adding and subtracting rational numbers homework, you need to finish that. And then you're going to finish the multiplying rational numbers homework, which is listed next. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Do you guys have any questions? Any questions from anybody? Okay, so you guys have the rest of class to work on your homework. Now, I'm going to leave the Zoom call on, but I am going to let you leave Zoom. If you feel like you've got a handle on this and you can just keep going, you can leave Zoom and just keep working. If you want to stay on Zoom and turn your video off, so if you have a question, you can ask me, that's fine too. Or if you leave Zoom and need to come back, you can do that. Okay, so whichever way works for you. I'll leave Zoom on until 9:55. So you may leave and go get your work done.